Welcome back to the Command Your Brand Show. I am your host, Jeremy Ryan Slate, the CEO and co-founder of Command Your Brand. You can check us out over at commandyourbrand.com. And we have a very exciting conversation with us today. We have Denise, the mortgage nerd, with us. So Denise, thank you so much for hanging out with me today.
I am so stoked to be here with you.
So I have to know first and foremost, why are you the mortgage nerd? Like, why that?
It's funny. People are like, you legitimately call yourself a nerd? I'm like, yeah, no, I totally identify as a nerd. So I'll give you the 3-minute version of it.
Yeah.
But essentially, when I was growing up, my parents got divorced when I was in second grade. And it was very rare back then because I'm old. I'm 42, and so when I was in second grade, my
So I'm
dad.
going to be 40 in a year, so that's not old. Come on now.
I feel old. I feel old. But back then, it was really rare for the dad to get custody of 3 girls. So I have an identical twin sister and an older sister. And so back then, the mom usually got custody, but the judge actually deemed my mom as unfit to raise children because she had a mental illness. And so my dad raised us.
Wow.
And when we got into middle school, he inherited $500,000, which I thought was like $1 billion today. But he did what any person does who inherits money or wins the lottery, and they weren't taught anything about finance, which means they just quit their job and then they spent all their money. He bought a gold Corvette and Dallas Stars season tickets. I think it was like his midlife crisis. But in middle school, we felt what it was like to have a lot of money, what we thought. And then when we got to our freshman year in high school, you saw signs of that money, fading out.
Wow.
To the point where when I was 15 years old, I started an eBay business. Yes, that's like the Etsy of today. Some of you guys might not even know what eBay is, but I
Oh,
was
we were drop shipping on Amazon, but that was like, a bunch
okay.
of years
Okay.
ago.
Well, I was selling, also back then the Dallas Stars and Dallas Mavericks and even the Dallas Cowboys. Like we were awesome, so I could sell these jerseys all over the nation, and I was making pretty good money. Well, by the time we got to a senior in high school, my twin sister and I, we came home on the bus and we pulled up to the front of the house, and everybody on the bus like looked out the windows, and there was all this like people making noises. Well, we get out and we saw my dad standing on the front yard with literally everything that's supposed to be on the inside of your house was on the outside yard, like mattresses, lamps, couches, picture frames. And I remember looking at my dad like, what is happening? What did he do? And that is when I learned that the bank could take your house away. Being in high school, I thought if you owned your home, you owned your home. But I learned very quickly that if you don't pay your mortgage, the bank can actually take your house away. And that's what had happened to us. My dad lived in that house for 26 years. It should have been paid off in just 4 years, but he also made bad financial decisions like cash out refinances and stuff. And so I share that because it was in that moment, those feelings, the feeling of being scared, sad, humiliated, angry, all the things. And I thought to myself, I never in my entire life ever want to be in this position. And I never want my future family to ever be in that position. And that's really where I became obsessed with learning about money and making money work smarter for you, and learning about credit and how if you ruin your credit, what that can do for you. And I did go to college. I went to Texas A&M, but I'll tell you what I studied outside of school is really where the magic was. So anyways, fast forward to when I graduated college, I became a financial advisor, and I thought the financial advising role, again, I had an obsession with learning about money and it making money for itself. So I thought that was a good fit for me. But here's the funny thing about financial advisors. They work with people who already have money, which is great. I love people who have money, but I kind of felt like my people were the ones that didn't have money, because in my heart, I felt like if my dad had people in his life that could have helped him make better financial decisions, like maybe not buy a Corvette and quit your job and start a business and all the things. But I just felt like this middle class or middle to lower class, they don't really have people in their life. You don't talk about it at the Thanksgiving dinner. And I feel like those people need financial advice, financial strategy, and they don't know where to go. And so, believe it or not, when I worked at the bank, Chase Bank, I learned that the mortgage role is actually so much more meaningful to families than the financial advising role, because as a mortgage banker, you see everything about a client. They're so vulnerable in the process. You see their credit, their income, their assets, their employment. You see everything. And what a gift for someone like me, because I'm like, wow, I can see your entire financial x-ray. And I know you're only coming to me for a mortgage loan and to get pre-approved but I could use this opportunity to make a meaningful impact to say, okay, maybe instead of putting 20% down, we put 10% down. We wipe out your credit card debt, and now we've increased your cash flow $800, and like that's the kind of stuff that fires me up. And so it's leveraging a nerd finance brain into the mortgage space, which is really rare because in mortgage school they don't teach you that. And it fulfills my passion of being able to help families make smart strategic decisions through real estate. But my goal is to create a generational change with families so that maybe when they come through the mortgage nerd group, they learn something about money that they can teach their kids and be in a better position financially for their future.
Well, the thing I will say is I feel like being a nerd as an adult is kind of where you want to be. But it's the thing when you're younger, you're not really accepted and popular for. I can say that as being the history nerd my entire life. So it's definitely a superpower as an adult. And I guess looking at that, as the mortgage nerd, you've been one of the top 1% in your industry. What are you doing so different than everybody else?
I learn and I study every single day. So I think with mortgage bankers and where technology is today and loan programs are today, everyone's kind of scared of this technology threat, if you will, with AI. And but the thing is in today's world, there's no shortage of information or knowledge. You can go anywhere, you can go to chat, and you can Google whatever you want, right? But the gift is how can you as a human take pretty complex things and deliver it to the human in front of you in a clear and concise way that empowers them and builds trust with them, that they don't feel the need to have to go chat GPT it all night long, because you were able to take all this information, deliver it to them where it makes sense, gives them clarity and power to still be interested in real estate, because that's part of where in the housing affordability that we are in right now. But your superpower today has to be more about studying and learning human psychology, human behavior, how people are buying, how people are researching. So how do you as a loan officer compete with ChatGPT? And
I
if
I,
you
th- I think a big part of that is though too. It's Chat GPT or Claude or any of these. They're only as good as the data they're given, right?
exactly.
So if you don't have the right information to give them, you're not going to get the right output. There was a thing that Chat GPT put out not long ago. OpenAI, the company that runs them, that they said, what is the prompt people most commonly use? And the mostly commonly used prompt was make it better.
Wow.
but
I
it, but
believe
once
that.
but once again, it goes with you can, if you don't have the right data to begin with, like these tools actually aren't that useful to you, and I think that
Right?
that's where the real value is.
Totally. And I the other thing is that my reading comprehension is not fantastic. I don't like to read novels of stuff, and I know people are different, but that's the other superpower that we have as loan officers and humans in the flesh, is like there's a whole group of people, an audience of people that might go there for the short stuff, and to your point with what however good the prompt is, but I still feel more comfortable talking to someone to talk through, to make sure that I'm diagnosing myself correctly. So I'll give you a really quick example of this. To your point
Sure.
is, I had a real estate agent on Sunday message me and they were like, Denise, my client chat GPT'd if owning is better than renting. And chat told it renting was better. And I was like, that does not make sense. I'm like, send it to me. And so, to your point, how they prompted it, the narrative that they wanted was that renting was better because they didn't really want to buy. And I always tell people, what you look for will almost always feed the narrative, or what you're prompting will feed the narrative that you want it to be, right?
You're
So
basically
anyways,
creating the outcome.
you're creating the outcome. Yeah. If I want, it's like if I want the narrative to be that with my argument with my husband, I was right. I'm like, see, Jason, I was right. Chat says I was right. Well, I fed it a certain prompt, like that's the reality. So, anyways, we ran actual nerd math and we did the rent versus own and the tax write offs. And it saves the client $100,000 when you look at a total analysis in the 3 years that they were going to own. $100,000, Jeremy. But if they only followed what they saw in chat, they could have made $100,000 mistake. And so that's the superpower we have as loan officers. But you've got to be able to do that nerd math. And I don't think that that's actually taught in loan officer school. I think that's part of the extracurriculum study that you have to do is quantifying people's decisions. Should I sell? Should I buy? Should I rent? Is now the time? I don't want to make an emotional decision. Let's make a nerdy, factual, numerical decision. And then it makes
Yeah.
it really easy.
Well, I guess when we look at excellence, we see it in sports, we see it in other areas of life, but I think at the same time, you look for somebody that's not just the best at what they do, but they also make people around them better. And there's a story that I absolutely love about Kobe Bryant, and I can't remember which game it was after, but they basically had blown the team out, and it was a game where I think it was over at like 10 or 11 o'clock, and Kobe was in the gym at midnight still shooting free throws because he felt like he could still improve. And I'm curious for you, I know you're somebody that's extremely interested in the career of Kobe and kind of how he's carried himself. I guess, how does that connect for you?
I was just about to say, I'm obsessed with Kobe. So I love that you're bringing up Kobe. Michael Jordan is still my favorite basketball player, but I do think that I have an obsession with this business. I think some people look at me and they might think I'm crazy because every morning I get up at 5:15, I walk on the treadmill, I have a routine. Most people are probably on the treadmill like jamming out to music, but I'm typically either listening to a podcast like yours or a motivational podcast, a personal development podcast. But I am obsessed with the practicing or the training or the process. You hear that in kind of all those. I'm more obsessed with the day to day wins and what you have to do to win the day. Maybe that means practicing at midnight or shooting 100 free throws a day or whatever that might mean in your industry. I'm more obsessed with what do you have to do for that day to win that day? How many reps do you have to do more than I am with the outcome? I can't even honestly tell you how many families I served last month total. And that's kind of backwards in our industry. They teach you like get the number and focus on the outcome number. I don't ever focus on that because I'm so dialed in on if you do what you're supposed to do every day, the outcome will happen. Actually,
Yeah.
you'll surpass the outcome. So I just try to stay focused on what do I need to do in my personal development every day to win? What do I need to do in my personal business to win? What do I need to do for my relationships to win? And I think if you just stack the wins every day and you're obsessed with winning the day, then the outcome is going to be there. That
Well, yeah.
doesn't mean that every day is perfect. Like,
Yeah.
but we're obsessed. I think when you're obsessed with the practice, the day, the outcome's there.
Well, I think when you look at the idea of greatness, right, it's something that you're always striving for and always trying to get better at. If you look at, number one overall picks in the NFL, there's a high number of those that don't work out, and there's always different situations. Maybe the system they were in, or maybe that's their skill level. But I think one of the biggest things that goes into it is somebody at that level's been told they're great their entire life. And I think when you're in a position like that, you're not looking to really continue to sharpen, right? You mentioned your gym experience. I'm not as early as you, but I'm in the gym at 6:30 every morning, and I'm typically listening to an audiobook, because one of the things I have is I have a chat GPT thread where I feed all the transcripts of all my interviews into, and I have it tell me, where are my knowledge gaps, where can I improve? And then based on that, the books I'm reading are to fill those knowledge gaps. And I think that's what you need to be looking at is how can I get 1% better? How can I get 2% better? And that really is what greatness is about. It's when you think you're actually great, you're in a position where you stop improving.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when I study some like human psychology behavior stuff. I feel like it comes down to three different fears, so to speak, of how maybe one person's motivated. You either have a fear of failure, which is a lot of people, some people have a fear of success and they actually sabotage their success, not knowingly, but it's like we have
Sure.
this internal thermostat that, we have that fear of success. But then I think the third, which is probably the most rare and probably where like a Kobe Bryant sits, is you have a fear of staying the same and staying status quo. And it's like that's what drives him to want to be 1% better every single day. Is it's not the success or the failure. It's like, man, I don't want to be the same human that I was just yesterday in any capacity. And so it sounds like you're a little bit like that. That's definitely how I'm wired. Is it's just what a small little micro movement every day, because literally I have a fear of staying status quo.
I will say, just as a side note, it is one of the best guest hacks, by the way, to start a thread on ChatGPT that reads the transcripts of all your interviews. Like, oh my gosh, I've sharpened my skills on so many things, because it was like, oh well, you kind of glossed over that and you could know more about that. Like, such a hack. But anyway,
That's
um,
so cool.
so I guess looking at it, then, for you, you don't just have a passion in helping yourself. You have a passion in helping other loan officers, and I'm curious, in all the ones you work with, what is the biggest mistakes you see them make in trying to grow their business?
By far, it's the distractions. It's
Mm,
interesting because most of them know what to do. They think they don't know what to do, but they know what to do. We help them get really clear on this is the number one sales activity that you need to be doing, that if you did every single day, your business would improve. And it's so glaringly obvious, but we overcomplicate it, we overthink it. That's just human nature. It's kind of like
sure.
if I were to relate it to fitness, like, we all know that if you eat donuts for breakfast versus protein for breakfast, that's probably not the right move. But even though we have that knowledge, some of us still do that. No shame to you guys, but some of us still do that. So I'd say in the mortgage community, it's kind of similar, but we've overthought it and we overthink it and we overcomplicate it. And really those are just forms of avoidance of doing the thing that we know actually pays off the most. And so what we do is we help provide clarity for them of, wait, hang on, you know what to do. Now we're going to have healthy accountability that says, all right, we know you shouldn't be eating donuts, so we're going to help hold you accountable to not eating donuts because we care about you. And I feel like accountability is the highest form of love in the business space. Now let's track the ugly tracking word. No one likes to track, but when we track, then we can see, did you win the day or not? Did you make these calls or did you not? Did you do this webinar or did you not? There's different forms of it, but it's actually simple, and we provide the clarity and we provide the coaching. We help them with script training, and then they start building the confidence. But once they start to see the signs of, oh, wait, I am distracting myself from doing this because I don't want to do this. So if I spend 4 hours in putting out a loan fire, I'll convince myself that that's me working, but it's really me spending more time on this project, avoiding making my 20 connections a day every day and saying my non negotiable is 20 connections a day, but I'll find something else to do subconsciously to say that I'm busy to avoid the thing that I know I need to do.
Well, and I think oftentimes too, we can also just focus on the things that we're good at and so are just easier at us. So we can avoid a lot of those hard things.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to give you an example with social media, right? Like so many loan officers I talk to, they want a brand on social media, they want to be consistent on social media. And Jeremy, sometimes they will spend like 4 hours creating a reel and perfecting it and all that. And you and I both know, like, that's on the internet for like
Hire
7
somebody for that.
yeah. Yeah. I'm like, I don't know that, you might be able to delegate your time for that. And so it's just helping them get clear on what should you be spending your time on? What moves the needle the most in 2026, today's market? And the reason why I know it works is because I'm in it too. I write loans myself. So I know what presentations are working, how to call a real estate agent, what you should be presenting to them in today's market. It's not one of those situations where it's like, someone did loans in 1995 and they're telling you this is the strategy that worked in 95. It's like, okay, but 2026 is a smidge different than
Yeah.
1995. So But it's so fulfilling and rewarding. And I love equipping loan officers with the scripts, tools, and playbooks to win and to really have a life that's, this business has given me such an amazing life and something I thought I'd, never be able to accomplish. And I just want every soul to be able to experience that.
Well, I guess, looking at it as well, and I'm going to go with the sports analogy again because I absolutely love these, but I'm a ridiculous baseball nerd. I know all these stats that people just shouldn't know. But I guess looking at it, you see a lot of, I'm going to use pitchers as an example. There's some pitchers that they have great stuff, right? Their ball moves well, they're throwing 97 to 100, but you put them in a situation where this is a must-win game and things are going to go well and they blow up. And I think a lot of that is the soft skills, right? The leadership skills, the way you're working in your day, the certain skills used to operate. I'm curious, what are those soft skills that, are things you don't learn in school that you think are just kind of vital to doing what you do?
I think self-awareness is a big one. I don't think like in school and growing up we're taught enough about self-awareness. And I think listening. I think majority of the time when I coach webinars and I'm giving constructive feedback, kind of like to the baseball or the athlete analogy of you're watching film. And I watch film and I'm like, but the client asked you a question and you responded with this. You didn't answer the question because you weren't really listening to what they said. You were just waiting to respond, you
Yeah.
know? And so I think we've just lost our listening skills and staying curious and open minded in what this person actually needs from us because we get conditioned. You talk to so many clients, and for example, we might get conditioned to what we think the first time home buyers' fears are right now. But we really should be open minded and ask curious questions and let them tell us what might their concerns be with buying a home in today's market. Don't assume it's interest rates, don't assume it's affordability, don't assume it's down payment. I've talked to several first time home buyers and they have 20% down. Their biggest fear is actually that they're going to make a bad decision. But we assume it's affordability. It's like, no, they just don't want to have regret that they buy this home in the wrong area and they're so afraid of making a bad decision that that's what's actually stopping them. But I don't think that we listen well enough. I don't think we stay open minded and curious enough, which really means asking better questions, genuine questions. And I don't think they teach us that. I think they teach us what to say more than how to listen.
Yeah. Well, I guess looking at that, there's a lot of key conversations as a loan officer you're going to have in your career, in your day. And I guess what are those things that you must, really master and what are those key conversations that you need to master as well?
I think humans make decisions and are motivated by pain and pleasure.
I would agree
And
with that.
so you've got to ask the questions that are centered around why now? What's making you sell or buy now? There's got to be either a pleasure. Maybe they want their kid to be in this school district because the football team is awesome, and or maybe there's a pain like their kid is being bullied, and no matter what, no matter if it economically makes sense, they are going to move because they don't want their kid in the school district. So you've got to get to the root of the why somebody is making the decision. That's really in any market, but especially
Sure.
this market. And when you can identify that, then your job is to deliver a clear and concise solution and strategy where they can feel trust and empowered that you're going to help guide them into the best loan strategy, or this is the neighborhood that makes good sense for you, all of those kinds of things. But the clear and concise is something I talk a lot about because in the mortgage space, we typically talk in mortgage jargon and we say things like LTV and DTI, and nobody knows what that means. They just want to know, like, am I making a smart is this mortgage payment out of budget for me? Am I going to be house broke? They don't know what DTI or debt to income means. So it's really, we've got to watch the tape. We've got to listen to your word choice. We got to listen to how you delivered the message. And if you can get better at the delivery of your message, you'll convert more clients into homeowners. And that's what we want. We want that for business, but we want that for the client because we know homeownership can help people be 44 times more wealthy than a renter. But we've got to really get good on our language skills.
I'm curious how you post game that, because I think at the same time that is really one of the most vital things to do a lot of times. You look at somebody like Tom Brady, winning as Super Bowl quarterback of all time, runs like he's got a piano on his back. He does not have a big arm, but he's got the ability to see plays before they happen. And that's one of the reasons he's able to do what he does. And I guess looking at the conversations you have, I'm sure some are recorded. I'm sure not all are recorded, but how do you handle post-gaming those conversations so you can improve?
I try to get my loan officers to record, whether if they're doing a Zoom with a client or if it's just on their phone where they're recording the audio, because it's difficult for me to coach or to see where there needs to be a tweak in their swing. So I tell people, using your baseball analogy, people say consistency is king. So if you get up to the bat and you swing your bat, or you get up to the plate and you swing your bat and your swing is the same way, but maybe your swing is off, but you don't know it's off and you just keep practicing with the same swing, I would argue that consistency is not good. You're swinging the bat wrong. But if you had a coach that could see how you're swinging and they're like, oh, you just need to raise your elbow up a little bit. And if we raise your elbow up, then you're going to be able to hit the ball better. And unless that coach physically saw that, because you can't see it, you just raise your elbow up a little bit. And now all of a sudden you're practicing with a better swing and you're hitting the ball better. Sometimes it's just that small micro change in the movement, right? And so when I can post close see somebody's presentations, there's a lot of ways that we do it. Our rate presentations, we do a screen recording, and I want to see it. And I want to see it. I want to hear it. Sometimes when I'm at the gym and I'm on the treadmill, I'm actually listening to loan officers' presentations to clients or listening to their conversations. And I'll jot down little notes at key timeframes. And rather than me, here's the key, rather than me give them the answer of, hey, at this minute you did this, that's not the best way for humans to learn. Instead, I'll say, I want you to study the film from 5 minutes to 10 minutes. And I want to see if you see what I saw. And I want you to critique yourself. And then we're going to talk about what we saw in those. But I want you to see if you can see it before I tell it to you. Because if they can self-discover it, if they can see that their arm was down, then their room for improvement, it's going to go up right away. But if I'm spoon feeding it,
Yeah,
it doesn't work as well. And so I do like to record it, but I throw it at them and I say, okay, I saw some things at this time. I want to see if you see them, especially as we move through the journey of coaching, because when they can start self-discovering, then they become better leaders for their own branches, because then they can do it for their loan officers. And self-discovery is one of the best ways for humans to learn, adapt, and make improvements on their own. And that's really what we want, is we want them to be able to self-discover, make the improvements on their own.
really enjoyed this conversation. For people that want to learn more about what you're doing or connect with you, how can they do that?
I would love that. You can just go to mortgagenerd.ai/ask. And you can chat with me real time there. You can download scripts. You can do literally anything you want. But mortgagenerd.ai/ask.
Very cool. Well, Denise, the mortgage nerd, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. And for those of you out there watching, if you're watching the video on this, reminder to like this video, leave us a comment, and smash that subscribe button. If you're listening to the audio, please definitely give us a review on Apple Podcasts, as it helps more people to know about this show. And we will catch you guys next time.